On August 13, 2021, Theodore Lucky, a man with a turbulent past and a reputation for violence, committed a horrifying act that left a community in shock. What began as a tragic love triangle spiraled into a brutal rampage, culminating in the cold-blooded murders of Nathan Cashman and David Hanford. By the end of that fateful day, Lucky's unrelenting fury and calculated cruelty revealed the depths of his desperation, leaving behind a trail of bloodshed and unanswered questions about the true nature of his rage. Welcome to Urban Crime Stories. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and turn on all notifications for upcoming episodes. Also, please watch this episode until the end, as we have bonus content. Theodore Lucky, born in 1979, had endured a tumultuous childhood that would eventually shape the course of his life. Growing up in a fractured environment, he faced constant adversity, learning early on how to navigate life through illicit means. These struggles led him down a path of criminal behavior, culminating in a string of offenses that landed him behind bars on multiple occasions. His name was synonymous with trouble in law enforcement, and his reputation was built on a history of severe crimes. In 2009, Lucky committed one of his most heinous acts, the kidnapping of an elderly couple. The crime, carried out with cold precision, sent shockwaves through the community. Arrested and convicted, Lucky was sentenced to up to 15 years in prison, with his case serving as a grim reminder of the dangers posed by his unchecked criminal tendencies. During his incarceration at New Hampshire's State Prison for Men in Concord, he faced further charges, pleading guilty in 2012 to another kidnapping and a series of related crimes. It was clear that Lucky's life was a cycle of transgressions and punishments. While serving his time, Lucky encountered a young inmate named Nathan Cashman. Cashman, only 28 years old, had entered prison under vastly different circumstances, but became an unexpected companion to the hardened criminal. The two formed a close and ultimately intimate relationship, finding solace in each other amidst the harsh realities of prison life. Lucky's feelings for Cashman transcended the confines of their imprisonment. Driven by a need for companionship and a desire for stability, Lucky expressed his wish to marry Cashman. Lucky's life took an unexpected turn during the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to his early release from prison. Returning to New Jersey, Lucky claimed to have thrown himself into work, laboring tirelessly for 80 to 90 hours a week. This newfound discipline and commitment painted a picture of a man attempting to rebuild his life outside the confines of incarceration. Yet, even as he adjusted to life on the outside, Lucky remained tethered to his past through his connection with Cashman, who was still serving his time in prison. Despite the physical distance between them, Cashman's daily phone calls ensured that Lucky was never far from his thoughts. Cashman frequently asked for financial assistance, and Lucky never hesitated to oblige, sending money to fund Cashman's commissary and phone account. This steady stream of support demonstrated the depth of Lucky's devotion and his willingness to provide for Cashman, even while juggling the challenges of reintegration into society. For Lucky, this commitment was not merely a gesture, but a reflection of the bond that had grown between them during their time together behind bars. In August 2021, the dynamic between the two was set to shift as Cashman's release date approached. Anticipating his partner's freedom, Lucky went to great lengths to ensure that Cashman would have everything he needed to step into the world beyond prison walls. When the day arrived, Lucky marked the occasion with a blend of solemnity and celebration. He picked Cashman up after the memorial service for Cashman's mother, Amy, who had passed away in July 2021. The timing of her death and Cashman's release added a bittersweet layer to the reunion. Meeting at the Dubuque Street sober house where Cashman was staying, Lucky provided not only transportation, but emotional support, understanding the weight of the moment. On August 13, 2021, Cashman posted a revelation on social media that sent shockwaves through Lucky's world. Cashman, freshly released from prison, announced he was in a relationship with his former girlfriend. The news devastated Lucky, who had invested deeply in their bond and envisioned a future together. Unable to process the betrayal, Lucky became emotionally distraught. His devastation consumed him, rendering him unable to function in his daily life. This painful rejection stirred unresolved emotions and opened the door to darker impulses that would soon escalate. While grappling with Cashman's actions, Lucky turned to another figure from his past, David Hanford, a 60-year-old with whom he had also shared a romantic relationship. Seeking solace and companionship, Lucky rekindled his connection with Hanford. The two resumed an intimate relationship, and just 3 days after Nathan Cashman's announcement, Lucky invited Hanford to accompany him on a trip to New Hampshire. The sudden nature of the invitation masked the turmoil brewing in Lucky's mind as he began making calculated preparations for the journey. In Asbury Park, before their departure, Lucky purchased a machete, a chilling indication of his growing paranoia and volatile emotions. He justified the purchase to himself as a precautionary measure, determined to be prepared for the worst. However, this act foreshadowed the dangerous path he was about to take. By August 21, 2021, Lucky and Hanford arrived at a hotel in New Hampshire. Their choice of lodging, room 332, would soon become the setting for a harrowing turn of events. The hotel's records captured Hanford's last known movements. At approximately 2 p.m., he was seen entering room 332 with Lucky, unaware of the sinister intentions lurking beneath the surface of their renewed relationship. Lucky, ever calculating, concealed his inner turmoil behind a facade of intimacy and trust. Under the guise of a consensual encounter, he persuaded Hanford to let him tie him to the bed. This seemingly innocuous act would become the prelude to a horrifying betrayal. Later that afternoon, Theodore Lucky left the hotel in David Hanford's car and drove to pick up Nathan Cashman. Despite the turmoil of recent days, Lucky's actions seemed carefully orchestrated, as if he were setting the stage for a confrontation. The pair returned to the hotel, but instead of going to the room Lucky had rented with Hanford, they entered room 304. This shift in location suggested a calculated intent on Lucky's part. Cashman's girlfriend, aware that he was meeting Lucky, texted him during this time. At first, Cashman responded, maintaining a facade of normalcy. But as the minutes passed, her subsequent messages went unanswered. Unbeknownst to her, the reason for Cashman's silence was unfolding in horrifying detail. Inside room 304, Lucky's emotional turmoil erupted into violence. Armed with the machete he had purchased days earlier, Lucky attacked Cashman with a ferocity that revealed his deep-seated rage and sense of betrayal. The confined space of the hotel room became a battlefield, as Cashman fought for his life against an assault that was as relentless as it was methodical. Lucky's simmering resentment over Cashman's perceived disloyalty reached a gruesome crescendo. In a desperate bid to survive, Cashman managed to escape the room. A hotel security camera captured the chaotic scene. Cashman, bloodied and panicked, bursting out of the door and running down the hallway. Lucky followed in close pursuit, wielding the machete with chilling precision. He struck Cashman repeatedly, each blow fueled by the emotions that had festered within him. The attack was relentless, yet Cashman's will to live propelled him forward, despite the brutal injuries he sustained with every step. Searching for any means of escape, Cashman reached the second floor of the hotel and saw only one way out. In an act of sheer desperation, he pushed the screen out of a window and leapt to the ground below. The fall, though injurious, was not enough to stop him. Cashman struggled to his feet and attempted to flee, but Lucky was relentless. He continued pursuing Cashman through the hotel with his machete glinting as he methodically continued his assault. The violence spilled into the lobby, where unsuspecting guests, including a family with a young child, bore witness to the terrifying scene. Cashman, bleeding profusely and covered in wounds, became a tragic spectacle as Lucky's attack continued in front of the horrified onlookers. The lobby, meant to be a place of safety and welcome, was transformed into a stage for the brutal culmination of Lucky's rage. Guests scrambled to avoid the carnage, some shielding their children as Lucky struck Cashman again and again with the machete. Lucky, however, was beyond reason. Consumed by anger and betrayal, he continued to strike Cashman. The lobby, already a scene of chaos and terror, became silent except for the sound of Lucky's repeated blows and Cashman's weakening cries. It was only when Lucky was certain that Cashman had taken his last breath that he finally dropped the machete. In the aftermath, Lucky fled the scene in David Hanford's car. Blood still on his hands, both literal and metaphorical, he made a call to his mother. In a tone that was both confessional and distraught, he told her what he had done. His words carried a mixture of anguish and finality, as if the enormity of his actions was only beginning to settle in. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Lucky's mother immediately contacted the police, hoping to prevent further violence or escalation. Meanwhile, Lucky drove to the Bedford Fire Department, located in the same complex as the local police station. Officers quickly took him into custody, his demeanor alternating between defiance and despair. For investigators, it was clear that Lucky's emotions were still raw, and his statements during his arrest would offer a glimpse into the mind of a man unraveling. When asked why he had killed Cashman, Lucky's response was haunting in its simplicity. "He left me. He lied to me," he said, his voice tinged with a mixture of sorrow and anger. Lucky explained that Cashman's betrayal had left him unable to function, as though the man he loved had been his only anchor in an otherwise turbulent existence. As the investigation into Theodore Lucky's violent rampage unfolded, law enforcement uncovered another grim scene in room 332 of the hotel. There, they found David Hanford, face down on the bed. His arms and legs were tightly bound, rendering him helpless. A belt was secured around his neck, evidence of strangulation. Layers of clear package tape had been wrapped around his head and mouth, cutting off any chance of breathing or calling for help. The stark reality of Hanford's final moments painted a chilling picture of premeditation and brutality, leaving investigators stunned by the depths of Lucky's violence. The discovery of Hanford's body confirmed what authorities had feared. Lucky's actions had claimed 2 lives in a single day, each marked by a shocking level of cruelty. The methods used in Hanford's murder suggested a deliberate and calculated intent to inflict suffering. This act stood in stark contrast to the chaotic, emotionally driven nature of Nathan Cashman's killing, highlighting Lucky's capacity for both calculated and impulsive violence. Prosecutors charged Lucky with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 for each victim. Additionally, an alternative count of second-degree murder was brought against him for Hanford's death, based on the argument that Lucky had recklessly caused the death under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life. The charges reflected the severity of Lucky's actions, ensuring that the full weight of the law would be brought to bear against him. The community, shaken by the sheer brutality of the events, demanded justice for the victims and their families. As the case progressed, Lucky ultimately chose to plead guilty to the crimes. His decision spared the victims' families the pain of a lengthy trial, but it also meant confronting the full consequences of his actions. In court, Lucky showed little emotion as the details of his crimes were recounted. The brutality of the murders, coupled with the lack of any mitigating circumstances, left the judge with no choice but to impose the harshest possible sentence. On November 7, 2022, Lucky was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Thank you for watching this episode to the end. For our bonus content, we will explore the tragic story of Imani Robertson. On July 16, 2023, a seemingly ordinary evening took a dark and unexpected turn, forever altering the lives of a family and a community. Imani Robertson, a devoted mother of 4 and a hard-working business owner, left her mother's house after a family dinner, never to be seen alive again. What followed was a harrowing tale of love turned toxic, secrets unearthed, and a chilling descent into violence that shocked Rockdale County, Georgia. Imani was born in July 1993 to Ronald Acklin and Clarine Andujar White. Imani's family described her as loving, nurturing, and loyal. Imani had 4 boys, who were ages 11, 9, 3, and 7 months old. Imani was close to her family, especially her mother, Clarine. Ronald, Imani's father, mentioned she was moving in with her mother. But then, on July 16th, everything changed for the family. On that day, Imani was at her mother's house with her 4 kids. They had all eaten dinner together before Imani left to go back home. Upon leaving her mother's house, Imani returned home with 2 of her children, while the other 2 stayed the night with their grandmother. Concerns arose when, between July 17th and 19th, Imani's mother, Clarine, made several attempts to contact her daughter. As they spoke daily, the lack of response was unusual. Fearing something was amiss, Clarine decided to visit Imani's home, only to find it empty. With no sign of Imani and her children, the worried mother reported her daughter missing on July 19th. Her father began his own investigation, reflecting on the entire day of July 16th. The police conducted an immediate investigation involving placing a lookout for Imani's whereabouts, contacting family and friends, and identifying locations she might frequent. The search led them to the shared home of Imani and her husband, Donald Anderson. Early on, investigators sensed that foul play was evident in Imani's disappearance. Multiple search warrants were executed on homes, including the victim's residence, as well as her car and cell phones. Imani's purse, IDs, and credit cards were left behind at the home in a strange manner. Imani's father, Ronald, said his daughter had never disappeared and wouldn't just leave after giving birth to her youngest child. He mentioned that on top of that, finding her SUV so far away and on fire made him think of the worst. The white SUV was discovered burned in a secluded area off Camp Creek Parkway in southwest Atlanta. Her father also shared a video of Imani's neighbor's Ring doorbell footage with the local news. Investigators also spoke to several individuals, and the evidence collected, including blood at the victim's home and other undisclosed locations, deepened their conviction that something grave had occurred. Despite ongoing investigations, the breakthrough came when, with the assistance of K9 cadaver dogs, the police discovered an area about 24 miles from her home, suggesting evidence of a possible body. As they processed the area, an unknown body was found, matching Imani's description, including tattoos provided by her mother. On August 4, 2023, investigators secured search and arrest warrants for Imani's husband, Donald. The Rockdale County Sheriff's SWAT team successfully apprehended him at an apartment in Atlanta. Donald Anderson faced charges of felony murder, malice murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. Donald's brother, Cedarius Glaze, faces charges for allegedly assisting in hiding Imani's body. Investigators claimed that Glaze played a key role in helping Donald. Imani's mother, Clarine, now shoulders the responsibility of raising her daughter's children. Her heartbreak is palpable as she speaks of the ripple effects of one man's violent actions. Domestic violence is real, she reminds us, her voice carrying the weight of a tragedy that should never have happened. For Imani's sons, the loss is immeasurable. They cling to memories of their mother's warmth, her cooking, and the life she worked so hard to build for them. Her children mentioned that they will never forget their mom's cooking. "My mom could have been a chef," said Carter, Imani's 10-year-old son. Even when he was young, he knew what happened to his mom. Carter said, "Someone I almost trusted took the person I loved the most away from me," referring to Imani's husband, Donald. From Imani's story, we learn the importance of speaking out against domestic violence, supporting those in need, and being vigilant in recognizing the warning signs of abusive relationships. It is crucial to create a safe environment where victims can seek help without fear or judgment. Donald Anderson was eventually denied bond and remains in the Rockdale County Detention Center awaiting trial. Thank you for watching this episode. Please share your thoughts about these stories in the comments below. Until next time, I will see you with another episode of Urban Crime Stories.